Two suspects are being. One case involves the FBI is now offering $100,000 to see if the police are releasing. Welcome to Missing Mysteries. I'm your host, Keely, and this is a Paranormal and True Crime podcast. This week's episode is going to be a very encounter-packed episode. Today I'm going to be talking about animals and their connections to the paranormal world. As a warning, I will be talking about pet loss and grieving today. This episode came to me when I found out about a death of a senior pet I follow on TikTok named Pot Roast. She's a very cute senior cat that reminded me of my own cat I adopted for my birthday named Ladybug. Ladybug passed away in 2018 after 5 years together when I was around 18 or 19 years old. Grief is a very hard topic, and for many it's hard to tell what their mind has helped them believe to heal what has happened. But I remember after losing her, I would still hear her bell walking into the bedroom or hear her meows. On days when I think about her most, I often feel her laying her head on my arm and sleeping in her favorite spot. I like to think this was Ladybug paying me a visit to let me know everything is okay. When I researched this topic, I found that many other pet owners experience events just like this after losing their own furry family members. Pet owners report hearing their pets' collars, seeing indents in their beds, and hearing their barks, smelling them, or even just feeling them lay in their laps or with them in bed. Dusty Rainbow, the host of Paranormal Pet Podcast, recalled a sweet encounter she had with one of her foster cats who passed over the Rainbow Bridge, saying, "A month and a half after he died, I was lying awake in bed and I felt the cat jump in the bed. There was enough moonlight flowing through the window that I could see there wasn't anything there. I could feel the little feet and the pressure when he lay down. It was his little spot, and whatever this was walked across the bed and then laid down on my ankles. I instinctively knew that this was my little kitty, and I just wanted the experience. I felt perfectly safe. There was nothing frightening about it." Another woman named Estelle Meyer told her ghost story with her little pup to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. In the article, she explains that in January 2006, she lost her pup Winnie and now keeps her ashes in an urn by the front door. Every day, she makes sure to tell Winnie goodbye and hello when leaving and coming home, making sure to tell her she is a good girl. Estelle believes Winnie is still with her in spirit, saying, "Every now and then I hear her coming up the steps. I can sense her, feel her. She was the most special dog. I loved her to pieces." Nancy Winhart, an animal communicator, on her own website shared a story about a dog she rescued named Trixie that changed her path in life, leading her to fight for animal rights and her journey to become an animal communicator. Trixie was 7 years old when Nancy met her. She was a boxer who spent her life being used for lab experiments, which means she did not get to experience love or life the way she should have. Nancy shared that Trixie was scared of everything, but she wanted to help her feel loved and live out her senior years in a warm, happy home. Sadly, Trixie developed a brain tumor after being adopted and ended up crossing over the Rainbow Bridge only a few months after being in Nancy's home. Understandably, Nancy was upset and hurt over Trixie's life and death, but closure started to come to her as she worked on her telepathic abilities. Years after Trixie's death, she believed Trixie came to her, saying, "She shared many things with me about our life together. She showed me that although she could not express love like a normal dog during her time with me, she had felt my love for her and that it had touched her deeply and healed her. She also showed me that her time in the lab was a necessary part of her soul journey, and it was what had allowed us to come together for a few short months at the end of her life, for both of us to grow and expand into deeper love. The communication was tremendously healing for me and helped me to release anger, pain, and sadness I had felt after her passing." It was several more years before Trixie got in touch with me again. When she did, she showed me that she had reincarnated as a young, healthy dog and was living with a family who had a disabled child. She was the primary companion for this child and wanted me to know what a wonderful life she was having. She shared with me that her experience in her last lifetime, both in the laboratory and with me, were what allowed her to have a deeply understanding for this boy and his experience of life, and that she was so proud of the friendship and service that she was able to give him as he made his way through this very confusing world. She thanked me for loving her and wanting me to know that she was now able to express love and be in a service in a whole new way because of her life experiences in her previous lifetime. Nancy's story in communication with Trixie was one I stumbled upon while researching. As a pet owner or dog mom myself, and someone who has adopted, it really shows me a different understanding of our pets in the afterlife. But pet owners aren't the only ones with experiences. Sometimes our own furry family members may have experienced some paranormal activity. Animals experience the five senses: taste, smell, touch, hearing, and sight, different than humans. Humans can taste more intensely, but sight, hearing, and smell have us beat. The way that animals' eyes are built, dogs in particular, help them see better in the dark and sense movement that we don't. The larger pupils let in more light to help them see more than what we do. When it comes to smelling, most of our household pets smell 10,000 times stronger than we do. Cats use their whiskers to be able to feel temperature changes and even air current changes. As for hearing, animals and humans are similar, but animals hear higher frequencies than we can. One thing pets and animals in general may have us beat on is the number of senses. Some believe animals have a sixth sense. Dr. Mary Birch, director of American Kennel Association Family Dog Program, an animal behavioralist, calls the sense gut feeling. This is an increased level of awareness. It could play a part in animals being able to read human emotion, sensing illnesses or changes in humans. For example, a service dog being able to pick up on a seizure, increased heart rate, or even a pet knowing a pregnancy before we can. The sixth sense, mixed with the increased ability of smelling, hearing, and sight, is used as reasoning why pets may be seeing ghosts in our homes that we don't, or simply picking up on these small changes that we may think of as paranormal when our pets alert to them. This is more of a current and sort of scientific approach to animals in the spiritual world. Animal communication has come a long way, with gorillas being able to sign or pets being able to use buttons and bells to communicate. Unfortunately, we don't have the technology like Pixar's Up just yet, where we can have a full intelligent conversation with our animals, where they can respond back in full sentences. But animal communication has been advancing quickly in the recent years. And who knows, we could possibly have that type of technology or animal communication in the future, where we can get a better explanation why they experience the spiritual world stronger than us, or if they really do. Animals in general are more open to experiencing spiritual connections than humans because they're not culturally conditioned to dismiss these moments as pure imagination, says an animal communicator named Kathleen Bosley. I want to take a quick pause and acknowledge that there's birds chirping and dogs barking, and I guess I heard that it is an animal-based episode. But anyways, back to the story. For years and even centuries before us, many cultures have had different beliefs on animal souls and their connection to the spiritual world. Let's learn about the different beliefs. Now, I do want to say before, there are many different beliefs between different cultures. Some even in the same countries believe in different things. There are actually podcasts such as Paranormal Pets that cover just that topic. I won't be able to cover it all, but I'm going to touch on as many as I can. Egyptians, for many, are the first to come to mind when speaking about animals. Just like any early cultures, archaeologists and historians have to interpret their findings to educate the world. For a long time, it was believed that the early Egyptians worshipped animals like cats and dogs as gods. But now it's more widely believed that, like many of us today, early Egyptians just loved their pets as family members. They grieved them as they would family members and believed that they could carry on into the afterlife, which is why they would be mummified and laid to rest with their family. Not only did they live as pets, the early Egyptian priests would use cats to help detect evil spirits that we may not have been seeing. In China, a similar Chinese belief from the Han Dynasty can be found. Though they didn't keep them as pets, instead making pots, buildings, sculptures, and paintings, the tiger, especially the white tiger, were seen as protection against evil spirits. In the ancient book Records of Customs from the late Han Dynasty, it's believed that the tiger can devour evil spirits. In Mexico, you may think of the abejas from Coco, though beautifully represented on Coco, date back to 1930 when a Mexican artist, Pedro Lopez, started to make them out of paper mache after a nightmare where he saw these animals. His art has been admired by many, including Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo, which has led to the use of them as decoration during El Dia de los Muertos. An animal you can see during this celebration is a monarch butterfly. It's believed that these butterflies are the spirit of the dead. During this celebration, furry family members can be included in the celebrations, including adding them to their altars. In Nepal and part of India, the dog is celebrated for 5 days every year in the Tihar festival. Garlands of marigold flowers are placed around them, and a mark created by smearing powder or paste on the forehead is applied to the dog. This mark represents the third eye, or mind, that is associated with Hindu gods, meditation, and enlightenment. Dogs are seen throughout Hindu texts, but are mostly associated with Hindu religious ceremonies for dead ancestors, parents, and relatives. Some Hindu communities believe that dogs are a link between the living world and the world of the dead. With so many different beliefs of animals' connections to the spiritual world and their senses heightened, there's countless stories of pets experiencing paranormal, but I want to share with you just a few of them. All of my stories come from a website called yourghoststories.com, and this first story comes from a user named Jojo Rocks. I was walking the neighborhood dogs one afternoon. They were small dog breeds and easy to carry along. We went to the park, and I stood near a certain house. Since it was school dismissal time, a lot of students were passing by. When one of the schnauzers suddenly barked, I just ignored her, thinking it was just a random kid or a stray dog. Then the other schnauzer and a pug also went berserk and started to whine, followed by a dachshund and a chihuahua. I looked at all of them to silence them, and then I noticed they were staring at the window of the house where I stood. I looked at the window to a faceless woman in the window staring back at me. The dogs were barking with fury. I then decided to go away and leave the place. Another user named 8-Bit Demigod wrote, "We've only had my cat Luna for about 6 months now, ever since we found her as a kitten in the backyard. Due to the generic erratic cat behavior and the adolescent need to act a fool, it's difficult to tell if she notices anything out of the ordinary around the house. That is until this morning. Since I work nights and sleep most days, we really don't have much time for bonding. So that time is usually early morning, right after work, between 7:30 and 10, when we participate in our ritual belly rubbing and hand mauling. It was around 8:30 and not quite light out. We're in the middle of our ritual, while sitting in the computer chair, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw a brief glimpse of a dark shadow go past my door and down the hall. At the same time, Luna looked up and started staring in that direction. She was staring so long that I set her on the floor, where she ran out into the hallway and stood there looking up and down the hallway for about a minute, before coming back into the room and jumping back in my lap. I know it wasn't my parents because my mom is short, while the shadow was tall. Even though my dad is taller than me, the shadow seemed to be floor to ceiling tall. Part of me thought it was passing car light, causing the shadow to move, but that doesn't really explain Luna's reaction, because she wasn't looking. When it passed, her eyes were closed, but she still looked up in that direction at the exact same time I saw the movement, almost like she heard it go by. Another odd thing was she came back to my lap. Since usually her attention to something is broken, she goes off and finds something else to do, but this time she came right back. This last story comes from a user named Renee Christine 19. As a backstory, she has 2 dogs. One is a healer named Oakley, and the other is a Rottweiler Husky mix named Bonnie. Bonnie has heterochroma. This is when an animal or person has 2 different colored eyes, and it's actually very common in breeds such as Huskies. The user mentioned that she spoke to a friend about her dog, who mentioned that they were taught growing up that animals with heterochroma could see into the spiritual world. The user wrote, "A couple of days ago, I started hearing strange noises around my apartment, mostly in the hallway, the bathroom, and the kitchen. Mind you, I live alone with 2 dogs. I hear noises like running water in the bathroom and the sounds of my door handles turning and doors closing, as well as footsteps in my bathroom and kitchen. Oakley, who I should point out is completely deaf, is always around me as he is very dependent and attached to me. But a couple of days ago, he started whining very loudly and almost panicking if he was not touching me. I just thought he was being very clingy that day. Later in the night, we were all three laying in bed, just relaxing before bedtime. He jumped up from dead asleep, stared at the wall by my door that connects to the bathroom, and was barking and growling with his hackles all the way up. He then put his ear straight back with his teeth baring and charged towards the wall, snapping as if warning someone or something to back off, but then calmed down and came back to bed, while Bonnie just watched intently. At that point, I was very scared because there's no way he heard anything over there, and there was no shadow in the corner of the room. The next morning, I was sitting on the couch with Bonnie while Oakley played next to the front door. Bonnie sat with her butt on the couch and her two front paws on the floor, and just looking around, mostly watching Oakley as he was nonstop. Randomly, she started watching the kitchen area and slightly moving her ears back and moving her head as if she was watching someone walk around. She does not wag her tail much unless she is very excited and mostly shows her motion with her ears. Out of nowhere, she dropped her ears back and started smiling and wagging her tail. She dropped her head down and watched something walk from my kitchen to my front door area where Oakley was, and right when Bonnie looked in the direction of Oakley, he went into attack mode. His bark was so high-pitched and sharp as if he got scared. What do you think of these stories? Have you ever had a pet experience anything spooky like this, or experience ghost pets for yourself? I want to hear all about your stories and what you think of this episode and animals in the spiritual world. You can do that by going to Misty Mysteries Instagram, Misty_Mysteries, or Twitter at MysteriesMisty. Let me know what you think of the podcast, what you like or what you would like more of by leaving a rating on places such as Goodpods, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Your feedback is very important to me. And if you want to hear extra episodes or watch a video episode each month, check out Misty Mysteries Patreon for that. This month, I'm going to be covering Diane Downs, and I'm going to be reacting to the original Ghost Adventures movie. I want to thank you for listening and supporting the podcast each week. And until next week, stay safe and hydrated. Don't get haunted or bring any ghost pets home. I will see you next week. Bye!